Hi everybody. We've received a lot of feedback on this blog post, so we want to take a quick moment here to just remind you of some of the key critical takeaways and to clarify just a couple of quick points. Every single enterprise absolutely needs to adopt a war footing posture. That means we take our cybersecurity seriously, we allocate more budget to it, and we put more focus towards it. Why? Because as this latest breach shows, with SolarWinds, for example, and the FireEye, and what is yet to be disclosed that we don't know about, this is a massive breach. This is much different than what we've seen in the past. And just because you may not have the vulnerable version of SolarWinds, that doesn't mean you can reduce your posture. But what it means is every single enterprise needs to step back and start with that risk assessment, that risk evaluation. Rebuild your risk models, your threat models, because the threat landscape has absolutely changed. A couple of key critical steps that you can take right off the bat. If you have a vulnerable version of SolarWinds, number one, absolutely remove it from the internet, absolutely power it down. Now I know when I say that, that sounds really difficult, and it is absolutely going to cause major operational problems for our customers. Reach out to SolarWinds to talk about options about whether you should patch, or whether you should rebuild from scratch, or whether you should look at different tools. And speaking of tools, don't go out and buy new tools right now. That is not the answer. You need to set your strategy. You need to revisit your strategy and reallocate your budget. And you can only do that with the right risk strategy and the right risk assessments. And from there, you build out your action plan, your critical focus areas. So the two different threat models. One, if I have a vulnerable version of SolarWinds, I must remove it from my network. End of story. Number two, I must assume that my entire enterprise is compromised, that every single host of my network is in some way, shape, or form infected. I may not be able to determine that today, but I need to start a strategy that helps me understand how to rebuild my entire infrastructure. No, not an easy task. I recognize it. This is a big, big game changer. If I don't have a vulnerable version of SolarWinds, I still need to take a look at my threat model. I need to understand how effective is my patch, configuration, and change management strategy. How well do I understand all of the applications inside my environment? How effective are my routines around patch management? And then most importantly, after the dust has settled just a little bit, and maybe you're going to go out and reevaluate what other operational tools you might want to use instead of SolarWinds, then you need to also consider how to increase your visibility around your threat landscape. This means moving well beyond log collection and incident response and more into proactive threat hunting. There are indicators of compromise that have been released that you can use to go out and sweep across your entire environment. But if you don't have the basics in place, which is what that risk strategy is going to define for you, and you don't put a framework in place that helps you become more resilient and adaptive, you're not going to make the right steps in dealing with this latest breach. There's a lot more we can talk about. Reach out to us if you have more questions. The threat landscape has absolutely changed, but the most important thing, just like when we're in the military, stay calm, move, shoot, communicate, adapt, respond, and overcome. Accept that our enemy is intent on getting into our enterprise. Accept that you are compromised if you have a vulnerable version of SolarWinds. And most importantly, this problem goes well beyond SolarWinds. So our customers right now are dealing with solving for SolarWinds, but then you have to look across the entire enterprise. And if you can't do this internally, methodically, hire consultants. That's the short story. There's a lot more to talk about here. Reach out to us if you have more questions. Thanks for your time.